each other and basically pushing their governments to nationalize these industries and to protect their own sovereign wealth. And so it really was this idea of economic development, um, of of growth was imposed on the global south, and degrowth emerged as a reaction, as a kind of global north solidarity movement with global south movements. So that's kind of the context of where degrowth comes from. But if you think about it practically, um, what would degrowth policies look like? There is this idea that degrowth, you can only want less if you've had it all, you know. Um, the thing is, degrowth is in general a proposal specifically for the global north, because it's the global north that carries the vast burden of climate change, climate breakdown, of environmental destruction, what people call ecological debt or climate debt. It's really the global north that maybe carries historically 95% of the burden of carbon emissions. So degrowth is a movement in solidarity with the global south for the global north. The global north has the responsibility to scale back its resource use, but at the same time, it has the responsibility to undo the decades of the centuries of uneven development, which has characterized which has allowed and powered global north economies until now. So if you talk about green growth, let's say we're going to electrify all cars in the United States, or we're going to build out solar panels everywhere. That requires a massive amount of lithium, of rare minerals, which are mined in the global south. And now we're seeing like different countries in the global south having to basically deal with a green extractivist mining, um, a new green extractivism. And so, what degrowth is arguing is that even if we propose things like the Green New Deal, we need to make those kinds of policies take into account uh, the the needs of the global south. We need to be able to align green policies in the north with the needs of the global south. So yeah, that's kind of where degrowth is coming from in that.
You just used the term. You kind of preempted my question here. So let's talk about the Green New Deal. That's a word, that's a term that a lot of people have, of course, heard popularized in the last several years by AOC and other young politicians and so forth. So, how does the Green New Deal fit into this debate? Because I think it's probably not a I think it's probably pretty likely that people who know about the Green New Deal from an socialist perspective would be skeptical of the Green New Deal because, well, the New Deal was a capitalist project, wasn't it? The Green New Deal is a capitalist project, isn't it?
Yeah. So in the book, we really actually tried to engage with this conversation about the Green New Deal. And the first thing to note is that there's lots of Green New Deals. And yeah, and the history of the New Deal was it was as a way to kind of fend off the real demands that the labor movement was pushing for, and to provide some kinds of gains for the working class, but really restructure the U.S. economy, and post World War II also restructure Europe in this way that would uh, maximize growth, economic growth. And the Green New Deal kind of maybe plays on the nostalgia behind that really transformative and very complex uh, era. And and it's really like there's just many kinds of Green New Deals proposals out there, and they vary from all kinds. And we argue that we shouldn't necessarily reject all of them because they provide a kind of way that we can insert ourselves into the public discussion and talk about what's actually needed and talk about what a sustainable transition, a just transition, could look like. Um, so we don't place ourselves against the Green New Deal per se, but we do say that the Green New Deal, if it is at all just, has to take into account, first of all, um, the relationship of uneven development with the global South, and a lot of Green New Deal proposals do not do that at all. It would mean basically if, yeah, as I said, if we're electrifying everything, where are the minerals going to come from that power that? So we need to have a kind of a model of Green New Deal that actually transforms the economy and at the same time drastically reduces the amount of material and energy that the economy relies on in a just way. And that's definitely possible. A lot of, we can talk about that, but a lot of, there's a lot of research showing that you can actually meet well-being, meet people's needs by massively changing the kind of infrastructure that you use.
In the last few minutes that we have here, Aaron, I want to ask you a little bit about politics of all of this because, degrowth, you can talk about it, all day long. You can talk about the environmental situation, the ecological crises, climate change, ocean acidification, all the different crises that are, barreling down upon us. But I don't know that it really matters unless we can place all of this understanding into the context of a political project. And so I guess my question for you is, how does degrowth go from being an ideology and a principle to an actual political project that exists in the real world? How does degrowth, for lack of a better word, get power?
Blueprints are usually not a good idea because things happen and you don't really know, you can't really predict them. Though we've been warned by epidemiologists that COVID-19 would happen. When it happened, a lot of us were even then taken by surprise, and it did things that we would never have expected. But what we do argue is that there's ways of understanding what kinds of strategy that we can take and strengthening those strategies and expanding them and basically kind of pushing for a multi-level power. So there's three broad strategies that we argue that we should be expanding and pushing for. Um, the first one is what we call nowtopias, and these are utopias that exist in the here and now. So this could be anything from your local community garden to a cooperative that you're a part of, to maybe like the Zapatistas or the Kurdish Rojava, where they're experimenting with these new models, new economic and political models. And the idea behind Nowtopias is that it's they expand the realm of what's possible. Once you engage with these projects, you can really see new ways of doing things, and that can inspire you once maybe a crisis hits, once you have an opportunity and you come to power to change things. And the other one is policies. We can have these policies that basically expand uh, also the political playing ground. For example, if you push for a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week, all of a sudden people have time. If you push for what we call universal basic services, all of a sudden people have the space to get politically involved, and they start seeing that we can build an economy on a totally different system. And then the last one is what we call ruptural strategies or counter hegemonic strategies, and this is direct actions, union organizing, strikes, but also political education. Really these effort of reconfiguring um, and rethinking what our society can look like, and building a popular base of power, so that even if the politicians we want are in power, they're probably not going to have the power to make the changes that they want to change. Even then, we need to have popular mobilizing to hold them accountable.
Last question, Aaron. It's one of the ones I often ask my guests. We do have a lot of younger people who listen to this podcast who, maybe they're just wetting their feet in politics, or maybe they're just coming around to these ideas of degrowth and so forth. And so I want to give you an opportunity to speak to those people who might be wondering, well, I agree with this guy. I mean, I agree with degrowth. I agree with everything he's saying, but it just seems like, what could I even do? How do I even get involved in something like that? What would you say to them?
I've been doing quite a few visiting lectures and engaging with a lot of young people, and there's a real sense of, honestly, there's a sense of hopelessness. Like, they know very well what's happening, um, but it really feels like they don't have the ability to see that there's that really they have the power to do something about it. And I think what we argue in the book is we need utopian thinking. And the word utopia gets a bad rep sometimes, but really we need to be able to imagine. It starts with the imagination, really. Like, we can imagine a new world, but then how do you carry that out? And I think it kind of like comes back to those three strategies. Look around you, in your town, in where you live, in your neighborhood, on your block. What are people already doing that looks like that? What are people already doing that looks like a different economy? Is there a co-op that you could get involved with? um, is there a tenants organizing group that you can get involved with? Is there maybe a politician that really has the right ideas but needs help? Um, so it really is just about plugging in, um, building power, finding collective solutions. So if you're kind of stuck individually, um, where you are, find people who are doing things that inspire you, and probably you're going to have a really great transformative. It's going to be transformative. Solidarity is transformative, and it'll change you.
I think that's very well said, and I agree. I can just, in from my own experience, just being an 18-year-old kid and getting involved in anti-war activism changed me very quickly. It changed my attitudes, it changed my outlook on life, on the world, and it changed the course of my entire political trajectory. And I have no doubt that the same is true for young people today who are just now getting politically active and finding things like your book, Aaron. So thank you for that. And again, the book, The Future is Degrowth, A Guide to a World Beyond Capitalism. Aaron Van Singen is one of the authors, along with Andrea Vetter and Matthias Schmelzer. I would highly, highly recommend that you all get a copy of this book. Aaron, thank you so much for chatting with us today and for this really great contribution.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's a real honor to be on Counterpunch Radio.
Thank you, Aaron. Listeners, thank you as always for the continued support, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.